If you look into Advent and the different traditions and what the different candles represent and things of that nature, what you will find is there are about a dozen different variations of meanings and themes and orders, and there are even different colors used. It's not some uniform standard, which is fine with me. I'm not real big into uniform standards anyway. And what I was thinking as I thought about this was, that really gives me an opportunity to really spend some time praying about different aspects of Advent and come with what I believe God wants me to share. Because I don't have to do the exact same thing in the exact same order every year. There's nobody, really nailing it down. And I was looking over this, wondering whether or not I was going to do the candles the same as I did last year, or go with a different theme. And it struck me as odd. One of the things that I noticed is that for the second week, a lot of churches have the second candle represent preparation. Some, like I did last year, use it to represent peace. I don't know about you, but I found that kind of ironic because the two don't really seem to go together too well. We can think about peace for Christmas and hope for peace and watch movies and read stories where, on that wonderful night, peace broke out. There's true stories from World War II of German and American soldiers laying down their arms, coming together to sing Christmas carols, then going back to killing each other on the 26th, which, by the way, in one hand is wonderful. There was peace. On the other hand, that's the problem with man. When we do it, it never lasts. And when it comes to preparation, we all have so many things to do. We're trying to prepare to make it right, to make it good. Gifts that we want to get for other people and things that we want to bake or decorate or plans to be able to see the people we want to see. There's so many preparations, flag routines to learn that, 2 weeks left to do it. There's so many preparations that it's hard to imagine having peace. And we feel like we've got to prepare really well because we've got to get it right. We've got to do it well so that it will be a glorious thing. And in the process, we miss it. We miss it. The preparations that were made for the king is a bunch, assuming a bunch, several at least. It was an inn, so there were more than one room, of selfish, self-centered people caught up in their plans and their situation would not give up their room for a very pregnant girl. Either that, or a very selfish and self-centered, afraid of what people might think innkeeper refused to go room to room and see if anyone would be willing to give up their room for a very pregnant girl. If this was a subway train, this is the video where a young girl waddles onto the subway and nobody gets up and gives her seat. And we would all be like, that's horrible. That's horrible. They're rude. Oh, we got this barn. What was it like? It was cold. It was dirty. Chances are the manger had to be cleaned out. The stall probably had to be mucked. It's not like they went in and straightened it out and got it ready for company. It was the nastiest little spot that wasn't just wide out in the open. The least that these selfish, self-centered people could do to make room for the King of Kings. And he took that little opening and accepted it with humility and joy. Say, Jesus didn't do that. Mary and Joseph did that. No, God knew what was going to happen. He knew the inn was going to be full. I have a feeling, this is just my opinion, this is not scriptural, but I have a feeling that his grace was poured out on Joseph to be able to have the discussion that led to the opening in the barn, in the stable, and the grace to go ahead and do it. Because Joseph was a carpenter. I've worked with some carpenters. Most of the carpenters I know, if they had a little pregnant wife, they'd be pulling somebody up out of a room. So I think God's grace poured out on Joseph, and he knew exactly what was going on. He took that little opening in this selfish little world that couldn't make room for him, and it was still glorious. It didn't have to be perfect. It didn't have to be fit for a king. It was glorious because God was there. And he took that little opening and changed the world, changed our lives. And the angels appeared to the shepherds in Luke 2:14, said, "Peace on earth, goodwill toward men." That stable may not have felt very peaceful either. We've got this little Christmas image of calm everything, and and guess what? There was pain, there was crying. Jesus cried. Okay? If he didn't, somebody probably slapped him on the rear to make him cry, because when babies don't cry when they're born, it's a bad thing. The animals were probably not being real still and cooperative. He was human. His parents that were there were human. God is his father. But the people in the stable were human beings. Stress of a young girl giving birth. A lot of women die giving birth. This was not what we would call a peaceful time. You can go to Memorial Hospital right now. There's some people in a waiting room waiting for a baby to be born. They're not at peace. The angels declared peace on earth, goodwill toward men. We take that and we say we're supposed to be peaceful and we're supposed to have goodwill toward one another, and that's true. But that's not what that verse is about. That's not what the angels were declaring. What they were saying is, this is the evidence of God's goodwill toward humanity, that he is going above and beyond and preparing to make the ultimate sacrifice in order to make peace with man, to end the war. A holy and righteous God who has the power and the right to say, you are my enemy and you do not measure up, I will scrap you and start over, had goodwill toward us. It's the only instance in history where a superpower has been at war with a gnat and made the concessions to make peace when the gnat still thought it could win and wanted to fight. We have peace with God. There's peace on earth because of what Jesus did. Peace with God. And yes, it includes and translates into peace in the midst of our circumstances. Peace that passes all understanding. Peace in the midst of the stress and the hustle and the bustle. But we don't have to prepare ourselves to make room. The preparation for our hearts, for the King to come, is for us to just come to the point where we realize that we are the selfish, self-centered people who have a room in comfort and said no and kept Jesus out in the cold. And when we realize that, and we realize that we need Him because we want peace with God, then we can step down off the throne of our hearts and give Him the seat He so rightly deserves. No, we've got a lot of things to prepare for. Christmas is 3 weeks away. But if you really want to be prepared the way God wants us to be prepared, now that we have stepped down from our throne and given our throne to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords and said, you reign. Ephesians 6:15 says, put on the whole armor of God, a few verses earlier, have your feet shod with the gospel of peace. But if you look at the Greek, what it says is have your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. See, preparation and peace, they do go together. They're not opposites. When we remember the hope that we have and why we hope, then regardless of what else is going on and whether or not we think we're going to learn everything we have to learn and cook everything we have to cook and buy everything we have to buy and see everybody we're going to want to see and get all of our Christmas trees decorated, and no matter what all is going on, we can be at peace. We can have peace. And then, when it seems like we're not going crazy, we're not pulling our hair out trying to figure out how we're going to get everything done that has to get done, that doesn't, by the way, have to get done. On the eternal scale of things, it really doesn't matter. And people go, why aren't you crazy? Then we can be prepared to share the reason for our hope, the good news that there is peace between God and man. That it's not about the tree. It's not about the presents. It's not about the Martha Washington candy. It's about God took the smallest opening in our selfishness that we were willing to give and cracked it as open as an empty tomb and changed our lives and gave us peace. Something to keep in mind over the next few weeks in the upcoming year.